Welcome to our Teen and Parent webinar series, where we explore one of the most important journeys families face together: understanding the teen brain, the risks of addiction, and the power of healthy communication. Adolescence is a time of rapid growth and change, physically, emotionally, and neurologically, and these changes can sometimes make it hard for parents and teens to connect. In this series, we'll break down the science of the developing brain, discuss how substance use impacts decision-making and long-term health, and provide practical tools for strengthening communication and building resilience at home. Today, we have Dr. Donald Reed from the McDowell County Hope Coalition and Mr. Cliff Adkins from Clear Story Counseling.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Donald Reed with the McDowell County Hope Coalition. We have Shanita Evans, who's the Drug-Free Communities Coordinator, and our guest today, Mr. Cliff Adkins, who's a licensed professional counselor. And we're going to talk about tough talks, open ears, how to talk to teenagers about drugs, alcohol, mental health, and sex without shutting them down. Today, we're going to dive into the hardest part of parenting, the conversations that make our stomachs twist and our hearts race and maybe our hands sweat. The ones about drugs and alcohol and mental health that we don't understand, and sometimes even sex. As parents, grandparents, mentors, we want to protect our children. But sometimes our words, even when filled with love, can cause our children to just shut down, tune out, or pull away. The truth is, they are listening. They just need us to speak in a way that keeps the door open. Our guest, Mr. Cliff Adkins, has spent years working with teens and families, helping adults understand how to communicate across that emotional gap, to replace lectures that people like me want to give with conversations, and to replace fear with connection. Today, he's going to share practical, compassionate strategies for talking about topics that matter. Most, we hope, before crisis hits, and how to help our kids make healthy, informed decisions while most importantly, still feeling loved and heard. Shanita, take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Donald. Good morning, Cliff. We're glad to have you. So we will start our discussion with why teens seem to shut down when parents bring up hard topics.
I would think so. I believe a lot of times if you're seeing any behaviors in your teenager that is confusing, or you want to know why, a good place to start is to ask, like, why would we act? Why would we be nervous to talk about certain topics, or why would we be nervous to go to someone and talk about the same thing that maybe we're talking about with our parents? And most of the time, it's because we're afraid we're going to get judged. There's fear of judgment, and there's also fear that it's not a conversation, that it's going to be a monologue. Most teenagers are like, okay, like mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever, it's like, you already know what you're going to say about this topic. And it comes off that way. And we've all run into those people. They'll ask us about, what do you think about this, or what do you believe about this? And then we'll kind of give a small answer, and then they'll go into a long dissertation on, and you're like, oh, you didn't really want to ask me a question. You just wanted to talk about what you wanted to say. I think that happens a lot with teenagers, like with parents. We'll try to ask a question, and then we already have this whole thing constructed in our heads. And when we do that, you've already taken out the listening part, because you have a script in your head that you're going to follow. And so what they have to say may not go with your script. And if it doesn't go with the script, typically parents will just completely disregard what the kid just said and go right on with their script. And again, if the kid has something to lose, or they're afraid they got something to lose, even if it's respect or privileges with the parent, like they're more likely to want to shut down or at least withhold information.
So now I'm going to go off script. As a parent, sometimes we feel like we just have to say what's in our head.
Yeah.
How do you stop that? Because we feel like if I don't say it, they won't know.
I think that you say exactly that. I think the biggest thing is we're so afraid to be vulnerable, like with teenagers. We're so afraid. We feel like we have to act like, hey, their friends don't have it all figured out, but they'll listen to their friends. Their friends aren't sure all the time, but they'll listen to them. It's like it's the sincerity, I think, that will come through with a kid more than anything, in that you say exactly what you said. I don't know if this will land right. I don't even know if I'm supposed to say this right now, but there's something in me that feels like I have to say it. And now you're telling them what's the dialogue that's going on in your head, which shows them that there's something that you're already admitting that this may not be the best thing to say in this moment, but I feel like I have to say this. And so they might agree with you and they might go, yeah, thanks for saying that. Or they may go, yeah, no, that's not really it. And you can be like, okay, well, I got it off my chest, like, and it landed in a good way, like it didn't come across as forced or overpowering. I think a lot of times whenever we're confused about what to say or we don't know how to say something, that's how we should lead.
You brought up what was actually supposed to be my next question to you.
Oh,
Why does peer influence have so much, or why do peers have so much influence on teen communication?
because rejection is the worst thing that I say teenagers, but truly we all, I mean, rejection is, I don't know that I would have a job if rejection didn't exist in the world. Like, I don't know, like that's like that's the basis of so much of our anxiety, depression, all the things, is that fear of being rejected. We make decisions based on fear. Um, we always want to be accepted into the group. And, and so when the group's values differ from the values at my home, there's now a struggle within your teenager. It's like, which values am I going to go with? What, if my friends reject me, I think we talked about this before. The part that lights up in the brain is the pain, physical pain. That same part of the brain lights up when we are rejected. And so that's going to matter greatly. And I think that's where parents can honor that. They may say things like, but its tone is so huge. If you're like, now I know your friends, blah, 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 they may think this, they may say that you're casting now judgment on their community. So now you've now put yourself at odds by that, like by talking about that. But when you say, I understand your friends may say this, I understand that this puts a lot of struggle inside of you, that this could put you in a bad place. I understand that this could be really confusing for you. I understand that, like, you're going through this, like, who do I pick? Do I pick mom or my friend? Like, I know you feel that way. So let's talk about a way to meet in the middle, or let's talk about ways that you can, maybe still be a part of the group while not participating in those things. Or maybe it is better to leave the group, and talk about the ramifications of those decisions, but do it with empathy, that you understand that that by going with the family values may be to go against the group values, and that's a struggle. That's a huge struggle for teenagers. That's why it's so good when they pick friends that are already aligned with what you've raised them to think.
That is so true. What is the difference between talking to and talking with your teen?
Yeah, that's talking with implies you're in a conversation. And I just, again, we have, unless we have heard it from their lips, like we don't know what they're thinking and what they're going through. We know what we went through when we were their age. We do know that. But we weren't raised by us. Like we were raised by somebody else. We were not in the same society, the same culture, the same expectations. They're different. And so talking with implies that you're also gathering information from your teenager while you're talking to them. Like you're gathering just as much information as they are. And that's really, I think, that's what conversations should be. If I'm talking at you, I'm giving you information. If I'm talking with you, we're exchanging information. Like we're going back and forth. And so I think with our teens, a lot of time we just discount the information that they have because we think ours is better. So they need to be quiet and sit and listen to our information instead of like that exchange. Yeah.
One of our past webinars, you brought out the fact that sometimes as parents or grandparents, we feel like that we just understand how our teens feel or the world that they live in because we were once a teenager. But the reality of that is we really don't. While while some things are universal and timeless, the environment and the time that they live in, we have not lived in as a teenager.
Right.
And you have to be wise enough to say, no, I didn't grow up with the pressure that you're currently under.
Right. Yeah.
Which brings us to the next part, which we've talked about before also, but it's good to hear again. How do you build trust so that a conversation feels safe?
I think one thing that parents can do, and I've mentioned this before, I think it's real important. Your kids are always watching you and listening to your reactions to events. So, like if you're watching a show or a movie, my parents did this a lot. They used movies and TV shows. Like there would be sticky situations on the TV, and dynamics that I would ultimately come across. And at the time, I didn't know, and I don't even know that they did this intentionally. Uh, but there would be like serious situations come up on the TV, and I would watch how they would react because you react and you respond and you talk about it. And when you see that they're understanding for some of the characters that are going through something that might be the villain in the show or the this, and they're talking about, oh well, we don't know what's happening at their house, we don't know what's going on here, and we don't know. And if only somebody would have done it, your kids are listening to stuff like that. They also hear the opposite when you're in the car and you're like talking about so and so's kid who blah blah who's like doing all these things, because in your mind you're thinking my kid will never do that, but it's like they may be in the back seat currently doing that and you just don't know, and they're dying to have help or talk to you about it, but they just heard you trash somebody else's kid for doing that. And so they know this topic is not safe with mom or dad. And again, you can talk about the severity of certain decisions around your kids, but do it with empathy. Like I would hope that if you would ever have these struggles, that you would come to me, that you would know that we would figure it out, that we would figure it out, that we would work through it, that I would not just drop the hammer on you, that we would figure something out. Because again, kids are just trying to figure it out. I mean, unless the kid's a monster, which is rare. They're just trying to figure it out. And so they're trying different things. They don't know what to do really. They just want to feel loved and accepted. And so when they do mess up or when they're thinking about doing something crazy, they're doing it to fit in. They're doing it to try to be accepted. They're doing it to try to find out who they are. They're not doing it maliciously necessarily. They're just trying to figure it out. And so as parents, it's great to help them figure it out. And I'll say this too. They're adults far longer than their kids. And so this area is so crucial because once they leave your house, your direct talking at is up to them entirely at that point. Once they move out, if you start talking at them and you start coming at them and you're judgy, they can just hang up the phone. They can just not come to your house. And so fostering this relationship where there's open communication, that's the part of every parent-child relationship that can actually last the longest of any part of our parent-child dynamics. Like we really focus on I need to just make you do all these things. And you need to learn from, and it's that is an element of parenting for sure. But the biggest portion of a parent-child relationship will be whether or not the line of communication is open. Because if that line of communication isn't open, once they leave your house, your relationship, I mean, it's next to not, it'll be next to nothing.
I want to just reinforce something that you said, because I've heard you say it multiple times in different settings, that your parents, specifically your mom, would use a television show or a movie which parents often watch with their kids in a non-confrontational, that's a non-threatening setting. And oftentimes a TV show or a movie has controversial or current topics that are sometimes difficult conversation starters, but your mom was wise enough to show her wisdom from the character's actions with her words.
Yes.
And I just think that's a good tactic for some of our parents and grandparents, that if you don't know how to start a conversation, sometimes that show or that movie could start that conversation.
Right.
If you handled your words wisely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are core memories for me. I could right now rattle off the movies, the shows with the topics right now. Those were just because it would be pause in the movie or after the movie, you talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were heavy topics. I look back and I'm looking up what year did that movie come out? I couldn't have been, and I'd be 10 years old or 8 years old. And I'm like, that's what, but I was learning about heavier, harder topics because it disarms everybody in the conversation, because you're not talking about anybody in the room. You're talking about other people. Those are characters. Those are, even if you want to use family members and friends, it's again, that's a way to build that trust with your kids, to let them say oh, okay, this is how they'll handle it if I'm ever in that spot.
And Cliff, you said something just here recently that just resonated with me. You said if my child leaves the house without communicating with me, that opens the door for her peers to influence her and influence her decisions. And I just had that to happen today. I wasn't in a good space and she left the house without us communicating. And now I'm like, how do I fix this? And just having this webinar and listening to your educating us on how to communicate positively and effectively with our children is so very helpful. And I thank you for what you're sharing.
Right.
What are some phrases that open doors and phrases that closes doors with our children in communicating?
I think it's phrases that help are harder to think of more so than phrases that hurt. Phrases that Phrases that help, I would say, is help me understand this. And it seems like, the word seems like, I would say that to anybody in any conversations, because it gives the other person an out, and it gives them room to explain themselves. What hurts conversation is when we come to somebody assuming that we already know their motives. We already know that's what kills a conversation. Because again, a conversation is exchanging information. So if I already feel like I have all the information, that shuts it down. And there's things that we'll say like, and I know why you did that. Why, how do you know? You might be right, but that'll shut down a conversation because you didn't let them tell you why. And even if you're right, we've been in that spot. We've been in that spot where somebody's like yelling at us or correcting us, and they're right, and we know they're right, but we'll bow up because we're like, I'm not going to let you know because you're coming at me. You didn't get that from me. You just happen to be right. And so we'll like, and that it's the same thing. So it's like, I think help me understand why you did that. And you reinforce, because I know you're not a bad kid. You like, that was a bad choice, but you're not a bad person. So help me understand why a good person makes a bad choice. Like, help me understand how that happened. And again, so you've already reassured the person, whoever you're talking to, that you believe they're a good person and that you're open to hear their perspective on why they made a mistake. And so I think that's good. And then again, rather than be like, why does this make you angry? Why does this make you frustrated? Why are you so mad? Why? It's like, it seems like you're frustrated. It seems like you're angry. And then they can go, no, I'm not angry. I'm sad. I'm not frustrated. I'm annoyed. It gives them room, and you're not telling them like, this is what you are. You're leaving that. And I also think that it's really good to set a precedent that there may be conversations between both. I think giving grace to both, the teenager and the parent, the guardian, is to say some conversations aren't going to be one and done. Sometimes your kid may come to you with information that's so heavy and infuriates you so much or scares you so bad that there is no response in the moment in your mind that will be helpful. Everything that's in your mind is potentially bad, and you know that. And that's when I would say to start is to say, I'm going to need a part 2. Like, we can pause right here. I need a part 2. I got to let part 1 settle in right now because I love you too much to say what's the like that. I'm just scrambled right now. Like, and I this means a lot. I appreciate you coming to tell me this. I always want you to be able to come. So I want to honor that. I want to honor the information that you just brought to me. So can we take a breath, like, and just pause and, go to our corners, so to speak, and just let me kind of process through this a little bit. Because most of the time, these bigger conversations, that nothing has to be done in that instant. And sometimes it needs to breathe for a little while.
But as parents, we have to fix it now.
Right. Yeah. But
we have to fix this so we can go to bed.
Yeah. You want to fix the thing we have to think. Now, again, this is difficult. You always got to be thinking long term, the long game. It's always going to be the long game with your kids because they're out of your house longer than they are in your house. So if they're coming to you with some heavy topics, that typically means it's already done. It's already happened. So there's nothing you can do about that. So you're actually preparing for everything next. You're preparing for what happens next. And so when it's like, yeah, we need to fix that now. We need to stop that now. Now, there may be things like they come to you and they say, hey, when I was hanging out with so and so, like we did this. And you're like, and the information just sends you into a spiral. Now, you may be able to be like, hey, again, part two, what I ask though between now and then is that you don't, the one thing I ask while I'm trying to gather my thoughts is like, you can't hang out with that friend until we talk again. Does that make like you can put down boundaries if it's that serious, if it's something serious, like they did something with a friend or they're about to go over to somebody's house and right before they go, they drop some information about what goes on at that house. It's a pro. I mean, of course, we got to keep them safe. I mean, above all, you have to keep your kids safe and secure. And so I think that that's fine as well. Um, to put down boundaries in the immediate moment if that's what's needed. But I just think it's really good. And I also think it's good for if you go to your kid and you say, hey, I heard that you did this. Is this true? It might be so heavy that they go, can I process this? Can we talk about this? Yeah. Now, in our heads, we're like, oh, they're going to think of a lot. They're going to think of a good, like, they're just going to try to come up with some story. The one thing I've realized working with high school students and middle school students, and I've said this so many times, I thought when I was in high school that I got away with stuff. I thought that. And what I've realized is I did not get away with anything. There was just an adult that decided not to call me out or say anything. I never got away with anything. None of us did. You're bad at it. You're so bad at lying. You're just so bad at it. You're so bad at it at that age. And so your kid is not going to come up with some story that's going to trick you unless you want to be tricked. Like if you want to believe a story, you'll believe a story. But if you just keep asking and keep kind of pulling back layers, you're an adult. Like your brain is fully formed. Theirs is just really starting to hit. It's like it's okay if they take some time before they talk to you, to give them that space as well.
Our time is almost gone, but one of the things that sometimes parents struggle with, maybe we're talking about those hot topics that we were guilty of as teenagers. How do you address a behavior that you're guilty of that you don't want your teenager to participate in?
Yeah, if they're unaware that you did it, you don't have to say it. I mean, you don't have to like tell your kid that you did that. Like you don't have to if they're aware of it, it's okay to say I think it's fair to be honest with the consequences of how that impacted you and how that whatever act that you did negatively impacted you. I think it's fair to be honest about it. It's really like truly it's to be honest about it. It's like is it really a shock? Like, I mean, is it a shock that people do drugs? That's crazy if you think that's like, why would you do that? I don't know, because you feel amazing for like a few. I mean, but there's negative. There's so much more negative, but to deny the other side of it. So you can be honest with your kid. And it's like, listen, I thought this. If you're talking to them about sex, it could be like, I thought I was in love. I thought that I had to do this to keep them. I thought that this is what everybody was doing and I got pulled into it. But let me tell you though, like you're focused on the benefits. Your eyes right now are seeing what the benefits are or what could be the good things about it. Um, but let me tell you, it did this, it did that, and it could do X, Y, and Z. And so I'm not you can't control them. They're going to do like if they got their mindset, it's like, but you got to give them that information. And if they say, well, you did it, well, it's like, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And here's why. Here's what I was thinking was I wanted to be a part of this. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this. And I wish to God somebody would have sat me down and had this conversation, because I didn't know the consequences. All my brain was seeing was what was good. And I didn't have anybody, because let's be honest, I mean, most of us, our parents killed it. A lot of parents killed it, but a lot of parents, if you're in our age range, like, I mean, they didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to do. I mean, it was like, there wasn't a whole lot of sit down talks. It was the talk. I mean, it was like the once, like, we're going to sit you down one time, get this, rip the Band-Aid off and move on with life. Um, and so to have somebody sit down and talk, I think I would emphasize that more with your kid, and not focus on the, well, I did it. And it's also, don't excuse the kid. I've heard parents do that a lot. Well, how can I get on to them? Because I did that. I did that. So how can I, what do you mean? Like, but that's wasn't a good decision that you did. So you're trying to stop them from a bad decision. Like, it's perfectly okay.
You
Like,
still have to be the parent.
yeah, you still have to be the parent. Yeah.
Shanita, we have to wrap up. Do you have any last questions or any last thoughts?
I was just saying how I heard throughout our conversation today, the basis of good communication is empathy, being non-judgmental, and understanding. And those are really foundations. And I'm just grateful that you brought those points out. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So I hope our webinar series is helping our parents and our grandparents communicate better with their teenagers. Next month, we're going to leave the parents alone, and it'll just be the teenagers. So until next time, have a great day.